for Karen to introduce herself and to give us her talk. Karen?
So, hi guys. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. And that was a pretty hard act to follow. My stuff isn't nearly as dramatic as that, but well, it could be. It could be depending on the animal. But I am a wedding photographer by profession and a nature and wildlife photographer by passion. And I kind of think of wedding photography and wildlife photography as the same thing, really. There's a whole lot of shenanigans and wild things that go on. But I am going to share my screen and hopefully it'll run right. And if it's not advancing and I'm talking about something you don't see, somebody speak up. Okay. So I just wanted to say I saw some of your things on the slideshow. Oh my gosh, it was just awesome. So that was really great. Let me get my screen set right. I'm going to try full screen. Well, I'm going to go like this. Can you guys see this? Yeah, thumbs up.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
And can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, super. This is a 6-hour presentation. I'm going to talk really fast. So hopefully we'll have some time at the end. I just want everyone to take a minute to look at this. I'm going to try not to read to you. I think you can all read. So, but I want you to take a minute to think about wildlife photography. There's so much more about it than just what f-stop you're shooting and what lens you brought. There's a lot. There's a lot. Okay, so the first thing that I get asked all the time is, well, what does it take to be a wildlife photographer? And it takes a lot of knowledge to be a good wildlife photographer. And one of those things is knowledge of your gear. You really need to be super familiar with what you're using. Not only its limitations, but you need to have finger memory, because if there is animal action happening in front of you, if you have to stop to look down at your camera to see where to turn to change the ISO or the aperture, then you're going to probably lose something. You need to be able to look through the viewfinder and your fingers know where to reach for those changes. We'll talk about some settings at the very end, but for me, there's so much more than just what f-stop you're using. So you also need to know what to reach for in your bag to get the image you want. So this is a bit of a brief idea, but I think of wildlife photography as both portrait photography and also environmental photography. You may photograph an elk and it really is a beautiful portrait of that animal. Or you may choose to photograph an elk that is in its environment. So maybe it's not filling up the whole image area. Maybe you're trying to tell the story of where the elk lives. So if you're going to do that, you need to think about what lens you're going to use, because that could very well be two different lenses. So think ahead. Am I trying to shoot portraits or am I trying to shoot environmental portraits? A lot of times, if you've got two camera bodies, I say put the long lens on one camera body, put the wide lens on the second camera body, so you don't have to take the time, if something's going on, to change lenses in the field. So you just pick up the next camera and go. That will make you more efficient. Also, you need to be sure if you're in conditions, y'all probably don't have a lot of coal batteries down there, but I can tell you that if you head off to somewhere out west in the mountains, or even the mountains of North Carolina to photograph the elk, your batteries will die very quickly if you're standing out for a long time in the cold. And Lord knows, don't ever leave your batteries in the car overnight if it's cold, because then they just will be bad. Know how to handle wet conditions, because a lot of our wildlife photography weather really makes the story good. So you don't always want the perfect day. Those are nice. Those are really nice. But wet conditions and that kind of thing. And then you have to be really comfortable with your tripod. I think if you aren't and you're trying to handhold, there's potentially a lot of disappointment if you're using a long lens, even if it has image stability built in, or your camera does. The tripod is going to make a big difference for that. So knowledge of your gear matters. Knowledge of the wildlife. And I put this image in specifically because for years, my husband and I owned a dive shop in Mexico, and people would want to come diving, and they'd all tell in Mexico, in the Caribbean, and would say they wanted to see clownfish. Well, we don't have clownfish in the Caribbean, and they would be so disappointed. They all wanted to see Nemo. So know if you're looking for something specific, if you have a burning desire to photograph clownfish, then you need to go to the Indo-Pacific or the Pacific, but not the Caribbean. And the same thing goes for big mammals and certain birds. You all know that. So set yourself up for maximum success. I like bears. Bears are my jam. So if I'm going to photograph bears, if my neighbor says, well, we saw a bear one time in our backyard, don't go set up and think you're going to photograph bears. The chances of that are slim. Go somewhere where there's a lot of bears. And it's just going to give you not only a better opportunity to capture the images you want, but to also practice your wildlife photography. You won't just have a 1 or 2 shot chance of catching a grizzly. You'll have so many more. And if that's a refuge, go and practice at a refuge, right? I wanted to shoot bears, photograph bears. So I went out west and I photographed grizzlies. And that's what I wanted to do. And I saw a lot of them. So I was able to get better at my wildlife photography because I chose places that have a lot of whatever it is I want to photograph, okay? Knowledge of behavior. I hear so many people, oh, I didn't see anything. We rode around all day. I didn't see anything. Did you know where to look? Did you know when to look? Why to look there? That kind of thing. So all animal life, sex and food, that's all that motivates us. Sex and food. Everything we do is based on that. And the animals are exactly the same. So what you need to know is, when does that particular animal breed? Because there's going to be great activity then. That's what you want to photograph. Where do they breed? What are they eating? This little bear on the bottom, he's climbed up into a hawthorn tree, and so he likes hawthorn berries. Well, you need to know, when do the hawthorn berries bloom? When do the berries come out? That's when you'll find the bears in the hawthorn trees. Different big mammals, moose, bear, bison, elk, all have a different period for the rut. So you need to know, what do I want to photograph? Do I want to photograph the elk? Well, then that's good. Rut season is going to be September. Bison, it's August. So if you're looking for those big bulls fighting over the girls, that's when you go to find them, okay? Food sources, we talked about berries and different things. When is that available? And how do the seasons and temperatures affect that? Those are things you need to know. Identify what you want to photograph and do some research on it. And I'll just throw this in. I'm always available. You can ask me. I don't know everything. In fact, I know very little, but I'll share what I know. So this guy right here lives on a refuge in eastern North Carolina. It's a huge wildlife refuge, and they can wander in the land is leased to the local farmers. So he spends his entire life basically at the buffet table. All he does, you can look at him, his belly practically rubs the ground. I have been to this refuge and seen 33 bears in one afternoon, and it's not a zoo. They come and go how they want to. They're protected, but they're just eating the farmers, soybeans and corn. Know when that is. And that gives me all afternoon to practice bears. So that's the way to get better. This is a grizzly. If you know when the grizzlies are feeding at certain, grizzlies kind of feed all the time, really. And I'm going to talk about a little bit more about this. But for example, in the Tetons or Yellowstone, in the late fall, October in particular, they are really foraging for food. And it's a hyperphagia kind of thing. They're trying to put on as much weight as they can. So really, they don't care about us. All they care about are the roots that are in those fields, and they're digging them out. And they're also eating ground squirrels and voles if they dig those up. But that's a perfect time to photograph them because they're not back up in the woods hiding their cubs or something like that. They're down in the fields beside the road, gorging on food. So that's a good time to look for grizzlies. And again, they don't care about us. They're just busy eating roots. This is neither one of these are good photos, but the one of the little bear was taken with my cell phone out the back window of a car when it was snowing. Most people, if you ask them when bears go to den, here in North Carolina, our bears don't go to den. It's warm enough here. They don't hibernate. Where'd that word go? Anyway, but here, this is in Tetons. The bears will often go to den in December or even January. Why? Because it's hunting season. And they are waiting for the hunters to gut their kills, and then they go and feed on the gut piles. They know that. They gorge on the gut piles from the hunters, and then they go and hibernate. So we all think that the bears are hibernating in fall, but they're not. They're waiting for that last moment of food, and they're filling up on that. Oh, and by the way, all the birds of prey are also on those gut piles. And I have been there when every single fence post had eagles on them. It was freaky like Alfred Hitchcock. I'm telling you, you could have done nothing but photograph eagles all day. Why? Because the hunters are dumping their gut piles by the road and everything's out there feeding. So that's the kind of thing you need to know to be sure you're getting on the critters. Also, as you can kind of tell, out west is my place. The bighorn sheep come down out of the very high elevations when it turns into winter because their food source disappears. But down in the Tetons, it's not in this particular area. There's still plenty of food. And oh, by the way, it's December and now it's rut for the bighorn sheep. So we have 5 males here with one poor tired little girl. And I'm telling you, they were courting and courting all day. But that's another thing. Again, when is the rut? Why are they there? They're there for the food because in the higher elevations where we may not see them, their food is no longer there. Another type of knowledge besides your gear and behavior is how to stay safe. So obviously wildlife is wild and you need to be aware of them. And these really big animals, they can move way faster than you can ever imagine. They're aggressive during courtship or if they're protecting a kill. Now, they're not worried about protecting the roots they were digging up. But if they have a kill, then they're going to do that. And same with their young. It's important to obey rangers. They're trying to protect us. And an example of back to behavior is this bison at the bottom. You see that raised tail? That raised tail means one of 2 things. He's about to either charge because you've annoyed him, or he's about to discharge. And you don't want to be anywhere near either one of those things. Okay. So if you're out photographing bison, okay, then you see the tail go up. He's telling you, buddy, you're a little bit close to me and you're in my personal space. So just back up some, just back up, but keep an eye out for that tail. You don't want this to happen to you. Then you'll be all over Facebook and you don't want that. Okay. Also environments. Now I know in Florida, you don't have so much of this, but you do have heat, and many inexperienced photographers are out in the heat. And oh, I love the comment that Edgar made about the bug spray. It's the same in North Carolina. Don't even think about going anywhere without the bug spray. I bathe in it. But out here, it could also be the depth of the snow. You step off the road, and if that snow gets over your kneecaps, I am telling you, it is hard to get out of it. So you need to be aware of getting overheated. Maybe you have asthma, maybe, just different things. Be aware of your own personal physical conditions, no matter how excited you may be to see something. You got to live to photograph another day. Okay. It also takes a lot of patience, a lot of patience. And I just recently returned from the Tetons in Yellowstone. I took a group of professional photographers out, and a couple of people wanted to take non-photographing spouses, right? And I said, I'm fine with that. But this is a photography workshop. And we are going to go to places where I know wildlife is, and we're going to wait for it to show up. So it's not a ride around looky-loo. So that's kind of the commitment you have to have. So for example, you need to, in this little sidebar here, it says, hurry up and wait. Anticipate movement and behavior. I would say that's one of the top 3 tips I have for tonight. Don't wait till a 15-foot moose is starting to take a walk. You'll never catch it, no matter how fast you run. You'll never catch it. And so you need to think about, where is he going? Why is he going there? That kind of thing. And you want to be very careful when you're making your choices about backgrounds. Really, really busy backgrounds are going to detract from your main subject. So when you're choosing your lenses or your camera settings, do what you can so that the background is not competing with your main subject. We're going to talk more about that in just a minute or two. Be tenacious. Some days you are going to come back with nothing. It's part of wildlife photography. It just is. Have realistic expectations. And I always have a macro lens with me, because if nothing's showing up, I can photograph something macro. So that day, there were these bull moose and a cow. And the rut's over. They're all hanging out together. The bachelors have a tendency to all go together. But in this top left corner, you'll see my background's not very good. They've got their heads down, this and that. And I just wanted to keep waiting. I knew where these moose were going to go. I knew because I had driven around that circle for 4 days, and they always ended up in this same area. So all the photographers stood right in front of those 2 moose. There's also some more moose. And they, I forgot what I was saying. So they're all standing there. All the photographers are standing there. Don't do what everybody else does if you think you know better. Just because all the longest lenses are there and the fanciest tripods, use your knowledge. I walked way down the road, the direction they were heading, and eventually he moved into this other opening, and then he took a few steps more and stepped into this wonderful triangle area without as busy a background, no foreground that was distracting from him, and it made such a better image. I am telling you, my toes were so numb after, it was at least an hour and a half we stood there. But in the end, I knew he would move again, and he did. And to me, that was the money shot right there. I love this image. The rest of the photographers and the rest of the moose were all back up there to the right-hand side, standing there looking, because there were a lot of moose there. So don't you want more moose? Well, not necessarily. I love this image. So if I say so myself. Okay. Get up early, stay out late. We were talking about that before we started the program when we were just chatting. I don't mind getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get where I need to be for wildlife. And sometimes that's what it takes, because you want those beautiful colored skies and that perfect light, and whether it's rim lighting, and then you have to stay out late. But a lot of times in the middle of the day, you just can't shoot because the light is terrible. So watch your direction of light. Be aware that almost all wildlife photography is the crack of dawn or late in the evening, an hour, hour and a half before sunset. And that's your best opportunities for beautiful wildlife. In the summertime, the big mammals just lay down and hang out. So you're not going to get those. Again, early morning, you want those beautiful skies, the behavior. This is a middle of the day shot. I got to tell you, I don't hate it. But this is a perfect example of what I consider an environmental wildlife shot. I wanted to show where this animal lives. And I can tell you, if I had shot this early in the morning, the direction of the light would not have been as good to show his coat, the bison's coat, the way it is, or to try and get light in his itty bitty teeny tiny eye. So that, for me, I'm going with this. I like it. But I think it's a good example of an environmental shot. Show where they live. So as far as knowledge goes, we've got knowledge of your equipment, of the behavior of the animal. Research that. And knowledge of how to stay safe in environments. Don't get dehydrated. Don't get dengue fever from the mosquitoes. Have a lot of patience. If you don't have patience, wildlife photography is not for you, period. Don't get me started about photographing birds, because that's the hardest. You have to be able to get up early and stay out late, or your images won't reach a quality that you could potentially have if you're photographing in the middle of the day. The shadows are harsh, the lights are harsh. So that's that. I get this question all the time. Do I need to wrap my camera gear and camo equipment? You know, you see all these expensive cameras all wrapped in the, camo, and their camera legs all wrapped, and people hiding in their camo equipment. Well, I think it just depends on how easy it is to approach your subject. I swear I was pumping gas and this happened. I'm like, what the heck? I think it may have been about the third moose I ever saw, so I was pretty excited. Anyway, depending on where you are, some wildlife is far more acclimated to people than other wildlife is. So in North Carolina, some of you may know, we have a terrific population of elk in the North Carolina mountains, and they are protected. We cannot hunt them. So they will allow you to get way too close. And I've seen tires punctured on cars. I've seen them butt cars, and you need to back up because they will come right to you. Okay. However, up here in the top left, these elk are all gasping for air because they were just running, because they're in an area where elk are hunted. They know that. Big animals know that. If any of you deer hunt or have spouses that deer hunt, they will tell you the deer know when it's hunting season. So they behave differently. But our elk here, if you want to practice photographing elk, come spend some time in the North Carolina mountains, because we've got plenty of them and they are easy to photograph. You guys got all the best birds. I mean, that's a fact, Jack. So when I was learning how to photograph birds, I marched myself right down to the alligator farm with all my fancy equipment. And I started learning how to photograph birds. I still think they're the hardest things to photograph, but I saw a lot of beautiful bird photography in your slideshow. So in my opinion, you have the easiest place to practice and get better at bird photography. I'm going to tell you what will make your bird photography even better in the next portion of our slideshow. These animals, they are pronghorn. They are the second fastest animal on Earth. Only the cheetah is faster. And if you approach them, if you open your car door and you get out and you start walking toward them, they're going to run away. Think about this. If someone opens their car door and starts walking right straight up to you and you don't know who they are or where they came from, your guard immediately goes up. What's about to happen here? Do I know this person? What's going on? The same thing happens with wildlife. Act like a farmer. Don't look at them. Don't look at those animals. Just kind of walk along looking at the ground like you're checking the irrigation ditch, what you're doing. And the same thing for birds. I mean, if you're in an area where the birds aren't as, used to people as alligator farm, then and other places, if you aren't charging right at the wildlife and just kind of meandering, they won't pay any attention to. So that's a tip. Don't charge right at these things. Okay, so as important as camo, what I just said, move slowly and talk quietly. When you get out of the car, no matter how excited you are, either don't talk at all about it with the people around you or talk very quietly. Act like a farmer. Check out the irrigation ditches, even if there aren't any, just pretend there is. Don't slam your car door and don't honk your rental car lock. That's nuts. Here's what my stuff looks like when I go on a trip. I use a long lens and a wide lens because I put both on my cameras. I told you that at the beginning, and I travel with them. If I can avoid changing my lenses in the field, I absolutely will, because it's dusty and dirty and your sensor will get filthy. I carry a macro when I have those days when just nothing works. I carry a sturdy tripod. I have a ball head on the tripod you see there, but I also carry a gimbal. I'm not married to either one. In fact, I don't really care that much. The gimbal should be what I should be telling you have to have for wildlife photography. Some things it makes easier. It certainly does. Pardon me, but the ball head works just fine. I don't carry a flash unless I'm maybe photographing birds in flight. And I know that's a bad thing to say out loud, but I carry my beanbag camera support so I can shoot from the car if I need to. My laptop, my external drives, y'all can read it. You can all read it. I do not use my ND filters on wildlife. That's primarily for when I'm shooting landscapes. And that's it. And then what I do is that all fits into my camera bag backpack, except the tripod, which goes in my suitcase. I zip that up and then I put it in a rolling, hard carry-on suitcase I bought from TJ Maxx. Why do I do that? And even my laptop fits in, and it goes in the overhead, because it doesn't say, here's my camera bag, steal all of my expensive equipment. So if I get on a plane and for whatever reason, I have to release that bag, it doesn't indicate that there's anything in there but underwear. I mean, it doesn't say Tamron or, Low Pro. And I know they make the best bags, but it's like the bat beam for come and steal my equipment. So that's what I use, and it works great. So, okay. So next part 2, how to elevate the pictures you're already taking. Okay. The difference between a trophy image and an artistic capture. A trophy image is when I still do it, I roll up, I'm falling all out of the car, I'm grabbing a piece of equipment because I'm so excited because there's the grizzlies on the side of the road and I flew all the way from North Carolina to see them and I'm so excited and I take the same photograph I've taken a million zillion times. So what's the difference in my, hey, look, I saw this bird or I saw this bear or I saw whatever, and artistic captures? What is the difference between those? This is a perfect example. My neighbor says, oh, there's a bird in my yard. Can you photograph it? Okay, here I come. So I go and I photograph this bird and they think it's the greatest thing ever. It has absolutely no impact at all. It is just a bird. There's no emotion to this. There is no story except what I just told you about the neighbor. The lighting is terrible. I'm on the wrong side of the bird. The background's a hot mess. It's what I call a butt shot because I'm not out in front of the bird. I'm behind the bird. And 99.9% of the time, a butt shot just doesn't work. Although whoever shot that terrific elk shot from the back end of the elk that I saw in the slideshow, that was a great butt shot. The head is turned away from the camera. I'm not engaged with the animal at all. If you see the heads down and they're feeding, just wait till they raise their head. That may take a long time. But if half of their head is missing in the ground, it's really not that interesting of a shot. The composition is not good here, and he's missing body parts. I don't know if he even has legs here. So all of those things are bad about this image. And it really is a shot where I just documented the bird in the neighbor's yard. Whereas an artistic image, and it could be a big subject or a little subject, will have these things. It has a powerful impact as soon as you look at it. It evokes emotion. It tells a story. It has good lighting, whether that's rim lighting or catch lights in the eyes and side lighting, 45-degree lighting, just not bright blazing light all over it. The background is good. It's not distracting at all. Good background is like a support staff. It supports your main image. And if it's busy or brighter than your main subject, it's usually a distraction. Watch for your subject matter to have good position or gesture, whether that's the turn of a head or the movement of a leg or anything that starts to tell the story. I like the head turned either completely parallel to the camera or toward the camera, because we know when we're talking to people, we make eye contact. If you're talking to someone and they don't look you in the eye, that's a freaky thing. It makes you uncomfortable. We connect with people and subjects, even our dogs, by eye contact. So when your photograph has eye contact with the viewer and the animal, it immediately helps all these other things on this list. Okay. Expression, good composition, always important, some drama, and good color harmony. So I think this image pretty much has all of that. Stay with your subject. Don't grab the shot and leave. Patience, patience, patience. Don't give up quickly. Find a subject and commit to that subject. That subject may give you so much more than you ever thought. My husband was fly fishing. He was fly fishing where he wanted to fish. So I had to do my photography where we were. Would I have picked that place? No. But it was his turn to pick a place. So I'm hanging out and there's a couple of ravens. And I'm like, okay, well, let's let's just raise the camera, see what you look like. Because what my eye sees sometimes is not what I see in my camera, nor does it really ever capture it. So this is I simply raised the camera, locked the focus, and shot. Okay, he's kind of interesting looking. I was with this bird and his partner for, I don't know, an hour and a half. It rained on us, all kinds of stuff happened. But my husband's still down there fishing, so I got to be doing something. So I just stuck with this raven and his friend. So now the rain starts. Same raven he moved positions when the rain started. But now I've got an entirely different image of the same bird. He's drinking the water off a rock he landed on. He's so much further away from the background, so the separation of what was behind him is better because it's out of focus. I dig it. I really dig it. I've got good gesture. I can see his eye. It's just behavior, all kinds of things. But I stayed longer. And for me, this is the image I really like. I feel like that elevated it to a fine art image. So stay with your critter. Let him show you all he's got, because we can really be surprised with what they'll give us. Behavior also supports a story. So this is not a great image, but because I didn't have it on the tripod, so I should follow my own rules, okay? But it's a great story because here is this, it's actually a cinnamon black bear. It's a black bear, but he's cinnamon colored. Heading over to check out what's left of a carcass, which is nada. But it makes a great story. And these are the kinds of images that you can sell to stock agencies, because that's way more than just a trophy shot. That shot tells a story. So much better than just your standard elk standing profile shot. We've got emotion, gesture, the eye contact with the viewer. He's far enough away from the background that it's out of focus, and it really makes the details pop on him. A moose in the morning, a female moose. She's eating. I don't know how familiar everybody is with moose, but they eat the roots and lily pads and stuff from the reeds under the water. So she would dip her head down underwater and eat for a while, and then just raise up, and the water would pour off of her. So although I'd much rather have a big male moose with great big paddles, if you've got a story to tell, it's really a strong image. This is another environmental type image. It's breaking some rules. It's a little bit of a butt shot, a little bit. I have zero eye contact, but I imagine in the dawn with the fog on the ground that this big moose is calling and bugling for his harem out in that fog. And there is something about that story. It also has good color harmony that makes it and elevates it beyond just him standing in the field sideways, not doing anything. There's gesture, there's a story. This absolutely horrible photo, I think I took about 15 years ago, is my second most popular sell at my stock agency. As bad as this image is, because it has an incredibly powerful story. This fish has what's the equivalent of a milk jug plastic top around him. He will die from this. You can't catch this fish and get it off of him. So it's a really impactful environmental story. And so it sells. It's a terrible image, but it's important to show it to you for how important those stories can be. So, male versus female wildlife. Antlers matter. This is a female moose in the top right. And although I love this image of her with the soft background and the sort of mist of the morning. And you can really see how she is a big animal. But the males, whether it's the elk with their antlers or the bull moose with the paddles, those make for more dramatic wildlife shots. That's a fact. If you're going to try and sell them, for sure, same thing. Now, if you're not familiar with wildlife, mammals shed their antlers. They don't shed their horns. So bison will always have horns. Pronghorn, those American antelope we looked at, they keep theirs. Those are horns. But antlers, like deers, shed their antlers. So if you are trying to photograph in the dead of winter, these males will drop their antlers or paddle. I call them paddles for the moose, but they're antlers as well. And they will shed them. So then they all look like females. So you've got to know, back to research, be sure that you're there when they have antlers. They grow so fast. This elk on the left grew those in about 2 months. Can you imagine what kind of headache that guy's got? I mean, honestly. But yeah. And the moose, we saw a moose in the snow, and that was in December. They would drop those paddles almost by the 3rd week in December. They'll be gone. So you have to know when, and then they all have velvet in the spring, and that's a whole nother thing, which I don't have time to tell you all about. I think we all know who this is. And so I'm not going to get too deep into this because it's way too sensitive for me right now. But I was there and photographed her 4 babies, and babies will always trump antlers. So if you're photographing female critters and they don't have antlers or horns, babies work. Babies work. Babies work. Oh, these guys, they don't shed those are horns, bighorn sheep. So they don't shed theirs. So they always have theirs. Okay, try to avoid missing body parts. I had this image. I'm sure you all have this image. But the missing feet on this bird drove me crazy. And as much as I love the image, I never entered it in competition. I put it away because his feet were missing and I needed to see them. I felt like it was a mistake. I don't as much anymore. But one day I had an epiphany and I cropped it. And all of a sudden I had a great image, which really did well in competitions. So don't give up on those things. And if you can't get if you have a problem area, consider, can you crop that problem area away and do more of a portrait out of that animal than an environmental portrait? Maybe. Think about that. Look at your images. Herd animals. Oh, the herd animals. They like to herd. So they will all clump up together and stand around. And then when you take a photo, as funny as this is, it's not a good photo. You've got, I don't know how many legs there. There might even be another one back there. And you've got the 2-headed herd animals. So when we're photographing herd animals, be super aware to exercise that patience you're learning about, for them to move apart and separate so that you can see their bodies and they make sense. Isolate them from the backgrounds and the distracting objects, whether that's a giant tree or another animal. Here, I don't even know what's happening here. One with their head in the ground and the other one with their head in the back. And, this is a crazy Mod Podge mess. But if you wait long enough and exercise your patience, then you get this. You can see how much more powerful that is. And the light is so much better. And I'm not getting wacky shadows from other animals nearby. These guys bunch up terrible. And I'm going to tell you, I have thought in my life that I was close to death, really and truly, 3 times. One, I was in an airplane falling out of the sky. Obviously, I lived. Two, I was cave diving and I was low on air and it scared me to death. I lived. And this guy right here, I swear to you, he's either madly in love or he was done with me and was trying to get me away. I was terrified and I had nowhere to go because my sister had moved the car so far I couldn't get to it. So I just stood there and took his photo. But my point of this is you can see all the animals in the background. So as cool as he is, could I crop it? I could crop it. I could crop it really tight and make just a head portrait of him. Or I could wait till he's separated away from the other animals. He is in the shade here. And I'm gonna interrupt myself to say he is in the shade here. So the color balance on him is really blue. You can see he doesn't look super warm. But when I shot him differently, he was in the light on a different day. And you can see without the background all full of other animals. I don't even mind the grass in front of him. I don't mind it because I'm looking at his eyes, looking at me. So think about those things. And what I did is I simply warmed this image up so it wouldn't be so blue. I needed to color correct that. And it was easy to do in Photoshop or Lightroom. Okay. Bears. Yay, 2 bears, not just 1 bear. Top left. I've got 2 bears there, but you can barely see the bear in the background. He's sticking out in the back. I wouldn't even notice him, I don't think. If we look at these clockwise, I just stood there until they eventually separated. To the right, okay, that's better. I can see the 2 bears. That's better. This is a terrible time of day, but I didn't care. Below that one, at the bottom right, yay, now they're totally separated. Their bodies are not blended together. And I kind of like that one on the right because it looks like he's smiling. It's actually a she and her cub. So she's smiling. And look how cool I can see her claws now. Can't see them in the top 2. We're talking about big grizzly bears. We're thinking about claws. So I can see them. But now the other bears hopped up. That's where your patience and sticking with your subject. Don't grab 10 shots and walk away. Grab 110 shots. Stay with it. Stay with it. It's such a better image. Top left, yeah, hey mom, look, I saw 2 grizzly bears. Bottom left, that's a competition image. Watch the light. Again, see all this blueness? It's because they're in the shade. These are our bachelors in December, all hanging out together. But if I waited till he stepped up onto that berm in front of him here, I could also see the light was coming across. And he stepped into the light. Now the eye has a catch light. If your eye can get some reflection, if you're the critter you're shooting, if the eye has a catch light, like you try and get in people photos, it gives them life. So here we have some catch light. He's actually, I'm squatting down in front of him, but I can tell you I was squatted in a position that if I needed to get up fast, I could. I didn't want to get stepped on. But he looks so much bigger because I'm squatting down. Low, see how small he looks? It's the same, there's the same moose. And now he's tall. A little color correction warmed him up. He's so much, it's the same way we photograph people. All those headshots you do where the CEO and you're down low photographing up, it makes them look powerful. Same thing with the moose. Eye contact, we've talked about that a little bit. We look at people and connect with them with their eyes. Eye contact. If that little fawn had been looking down at the grass, it would not be nearly as good an image. Shrimp, you guys got lots of these down there. So those eyeballs make this image. And some days you cannot catch a break. I stood there forever, and none of these elk would turn around and do a darn thing. So that's when, you go back, you work on your images in the hotel or at home, and try to come up with something. So here is what everybody seems to think is the secret to good wildlife photography. And really, it's not. It's not. But take a picture of it if you would like. And these are just some quick pointers. What are the best settings? Well, what are you trying to accomplish? If you've got a bunch of those pronghorn running at top speed, don't think you're probably going to stop them. Tell the story of how fast they are with some intentional blur, right? Maybe even try panning and catching the head in focus and the body's moving. Think about, what is my intention here? Am I trying to show the bison in front of the Grand Teton? Maybe that's what I want. So think about that. Know your subject. Know how they behave. If they're shy, you'll have to approach it different. If they're bold, know that. If they're dangerous, know that, right? We've all got great cameras now. Push your ISO. Push it, push it, push it. If you've got lots of fast action, put it on burst mode or continuous, right? For focus, or burst mode to capture as they move. Fast shutters. Y'all know about flying birds. I don't need to tell you anything about those. So I shoot a lot of aperture priority unless I'm in light where I really need to shoot manual. But again, consider the situation and the environment. I'm almost out of breath. I'm talking so fast. And guys, that's the end of my presentation. So I do want to see if you guys have any questions. I will stop sharing.
Unmute yourself. You can, yeah, everybody unmute yourself if you have a question. Somebody did ask if you do workshops. Because
I do.
Can you tell us about that?
I do. I do both 2-day workshops where we go into what I just breezed through in depth, and then we go out and shoot. Because I can show you my stuff forever, but until you're out in the field and practicing the things we talk about, and then we come back and we edit and work on them and talk about processing. And then we get up the next morning at the crack of dawn and we do some more photography. So a lot of those I will teach in the mountains of North Carolina. Because that is, again, when I talk about setting yourself up for success, I gotta say, it's almost as good a guarantee. There are no guarantees in wildlife photography, but there certainly is with the elk in the mountains of North Carolina, and that's easy. You guys can drive right up there. In fact, I was up there, and even though there is so much damage around the area where the elk are, it's still accessible. It's still accessible. I also take groups out to the Tetons and Yellowstone, because I think that I really like the Tetons. You can get on wildlife fast if you know where to go. So I take groups out there and we do nothing but photograph, eat, and process. So that's what we do.
So Karen, can people find out about that on your website?
I'm terrible with my website. I'm terrible. But usually almost every year I will have a workshop, and if you just send me an email, I can give you dates for it. So my email is info at Karen Doody, Karen with a K and DOODY.com. I also have a website called The Wild Doody, because if you've got a last name like Doody, you just got to kind of go with the fun on that. So The Wild Doody is my wildlife. But I also, one of the things when we do our travel, I always teach some landscape too, because if you're out shooting wildlife and it doesn't show up, it's easy to switch to landscape photography. And I love landscape photography. I saw that you guys have in-camera motion on your upcoming plans, so I might need to eavesdrop on that. I love in-camera motion and landscape. So
We have an expert, Anita. Wave.
Absolutely.
cool.
Hi.
Well, I've just been. Hi, Anita. I see you with your background. That's all blurred.
Yeah.
She wins a lot of awards. We really have an expert. Yeah.
I just got into it. I love it. Anyway, so please contact me and I can help you out with that. I do teach some other stuff. I am a macro maniac for florals. So that's yeah.
Ooh, we may need to talk to you for a
I would
future-
love to come and do hands-on with that.
Oh man. Okay.
I would
Susan.
love that, because I love that as much as I like animals. So
Really? Okay, we love that. Okay, all right. We'll get you on the road. Susan Hitch, did you write that down? Macro. Anyway, well, this is great. We're getting, I don't know, Karen, if you can see him, but people are like, excellent. Thank you so much.
oh, I'm so glad.
I'm going to maybe go back and look at my wildlife photos and see if I can zoom in.
Yeah, right. Crop some of that mess out. Just crop it out. Don't give up on them. Crop it out.
That is really, really helpful. So we're pretty much, that's it. If nobody else has any other questions, but thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you. That was really wonderful.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Karen.
You're very welcome. It was my pleasure to be here.
Bravo.
And I will see you guys hopefully again soon, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Thank
yes.
you, Karen. And remember too what Scott was saying. So it'll take
I
us a
remember.
while. We'll get it up on the YouTube. And if you want to have a link, like even to parts of it or something,
Mhm.
let us know. But thank you very, very much. And even I am not patient. One of my buddies was texting me and going, "Hey, Liz, let's go do this." And I'm like, "I'm terrible at sitting still." So I will work on that.
Yeah, do work on it because it is key to success.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys. Good night. I'm signing
you.
off.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Loved it.